learners, welcome to this online session in which I am going to discuss about toxic biotransformations. Myself Dr. Seema Kalra, School of Sciences, Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. So, in this lecture I am going to talk about various aspects of how toxic substances such as pollutants get accumulated in the living organisms and environment and how they cause toxicity. So, after going through this lecture, you will be able to define bioaccumulations, discuss case studies of bioaccumulation of toxicants and their effects. I will also explain the processes of biomagnification and bioconcentration. Then I will be taking different modes of biodegradation. We will also talk about biotransformations and what type of reactions are involved in them, and finally we will talk about the role of microbes in bioremediation. So, now before we begin with all these definitions and aspects, these things come under a subject known as ecotoxicity. So, what is ecotoxicity? Ecotoxicity is the study of adverse effects of environmental pollutants on ecosystem and its constituents, that is animals, plants and microorganisms. So, all these pollutants, when we talk about these pollutants, generally it comes to our mind that these are human made substances, but you will be surprised to know that there are certain natural substances which can be harmful to us when they are unusually distributed in the environment or their high or extremely high levels enter at any of the levels of the ecosystem. So, generally when we talk about any chemicals which are harmful to the environment or the living organisms, you will see that they share some common features. So, these common features are persistence in the environment, accumulation in the living organisms and high toxicity. So, now how these different compounds are released into the environment, since large number of organic and inorganic compounds are released. So, they can be divided into two categories: biogenic. Biogenic are those which are produced by natural processes such as volcano eruption, and then metabolic activities which are taking place in the living organisms. Then if these compounds are human made, they are synthetic compounds, they are known as anthropogenic if they are present in the environment due to mobilization or activity of the humans. So, basically anything, whether it is synthetic or natural, if it is unusually high concentration and present in the environment in very high concentration due to human activities, then these are known as anthropogenic. So, examples include carbon dioxide and lead, mercury, pesticides, herbicides, pharmaceuticals, various solvents which are used in industries, fuels which are emitted by various vehicles, then waste effluents of the industries. So, all these are because of human activities, so they are known as anthropogenic. Now, any human made synthetic compound is known as xenobiotics. So, xenobiotics, many of the xenobiotics, they are similar to the natural products, but there may be some which have the novel structure features which are not normally found in nature. So, that is where they cause problems. Now, based on whether they can be degraded in nature or not, they are divided into biodegradable. So, most of the xenobiotics, they can be metabolized by microorganisms for their energy or as a source of their nutrients. So, they will be degraded to the smaller compounds which can be easily eliminated. So, they are known as biodegradable. Then, but there are xenobiotics which have certain different structural features. So, which cannot be degraded in nature. So, what happens is such xenobiotics will stay in the environment even after the long time periods when they have been released into the environment. So, these are known as recalcitrants. Now, what is the reason? Means when the microbes are able to handle most of the xenobiotics, so what is the reason that these persistent or recalcitrant chemicals persist in the environment for long periods of time? So, there can be number of factors. One is that microbes do not possess the enzymes which are required to degrade these chemicals, because they have been synthesized in the laboratory with the structural features which are not recognized by the microbes, because that was the purpose of their synthesis, they are stable. Then these compounds may not serve as a source of energy or carbon for their growth. So, naturally the microbes will not utilize them. Then another reason could be that they are not able to penetrate the cells. So, if they are not able to penetrate the cells, these cells will not be able to metabolize them. Or the simple reason could be that their concentration in the environment is very, very high, which exceeds the tolerance of the microbial metabolic activities. So, now these are also known as persistent organic pollutants, that is POPs. So, now we will be looking at some of these POPs in little bit more details. So, one category of these is halocarbons. Now, halocarbons, you know that these are the organic compounds in which carbon is covalently bonded to a halogen. So, halogens are fluorine, chlorine, bromine and iodine. Now, halogens can come from both natural as well as human made sources, and these synthetic halocarbons, they include solvents which have been used for various industrial cleaning purposes, then medicines, then various pesticides such as DDT, methoxychlor, then dieldrin is there, lindane is there, chloridane is there, then atrazine is there, benzene hexachloride. So, all these pesticides or herbicides, these are all halocarbons. Then freon gas, then we have plastics. So, all these come under the category of halocarbons. Then if we talk about natural activities, for example dioxins, these are halocarbons which are released during wood fire or volcanic activities. Not only that, various microbes, they also produce halocarbons. Then next category is polychlorinated biphenyls. So, these are abbreviated as PCBs, and they are used commonly in manufacturing of paints, adhesives and various plastics, and the major part where the polychlorinated biphenyls, they are entering into the environment is by leakage through the landfill sites which contain the transformers and capacitors. Then incinerations of wastes are there, or the sewage effluents are there. So, leakage of all these things from the landfill sites leads to their accumulation in the environment, and just like halocarbons, they are also chemically and biologically inert molecules. Then the next category is synthetic polymers. Now, these have been derived from petroleum oil and they are water soluble. So, you have to remember all these persistent molecules, they are they are water soluble or lipophilic molecules. So, example of these synthetic polymers are nylon, which is very commonly used in textile and fabric industries. Then polyethylene, which you very commonly know as plastics. Everything in our kitchen, most of the things are made up of plastic, let it be bottles or containers, lunch boxes, even for packing also this is being used in tremendous amounts. Then we have polyvinyl chloride, PVC, which is used in pipes. Then Teflon, which is used as a coating for non-stick pans, and then epoxy. So, all these are why they have been used so extensively, because these polymers are much more stable than natural polymers. So, that is why they have been preferred and widely used. Then another category is polyaromatic hydrocarbons, which are abbreviated as PAH. Now, there are a group of more than 100 chemicals which are released into the environment, such as burning of coal, oil, gasoline, then tobacco, wood burning and other organic substances such as charcoal, broiled meat. So, all these substances, when they burn, they release the hydrocarbons which are known as polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or these are also known as polynuclear aromatic hydrocarbons. Then when there are forest activities like forest fires and volcanoes, again they also release tremendous amount of these compounds. Now, if we come to human driven activities, these are such as driving, agricultural burning जिसको हम पराली का भी बोलते हैं, roofing and working with coal tar products, then sound and waterproofing, coating the pipes, then steel making and paving the asphalt. So, all these are commonly result in the release of polyaromatic hydrocarbon into the environment. Now, there is another category, we are talking about heavy metals. Now, heavy metals, you know that these do not come under the persistent organic pollutants, but why we are including them is because their indiscriminate use for human purposes has altered their geochemical cycles and biochemical balance. So, as a result, there is excessive accumulation and prolonged exposure to very large number of heavy metals such as cadmium, copper, lead, nickel and zinc, and these are percolating in large amount into our soil and water and are resulting into deleterious health effects on human life and aquatic biota. So, now just to give you an idea how persistent these molecules are, if you look at DDT, which is commonly used as a pesticide, it is found in very large amount in soil. Soil is highly contaminated with DDT. So, it has a half life of 2 to 15 years. So, you can imagine that even if you stop using it today, so it will still persist in the environment for another 15 to 20, 30 years in nature. Then dieldrin is there, which has a half life of 5 years. We have benzopyrene, which is coming from vehicle exhausts. So, this has a half life of 14 months. Then we have atrazine. Atrazine is again a herbicide which has a half life of 25 months. So, this may give you an idea how persistently they are occurring in the environment. Now, the question is, if they are just present there, does the mere presence of a chemical for a long time in the environment, does it make it toxic? The answer is no. See, it is not their presence, it is that when they enter into the biotic segment of the environment. So, when they enter into the living organisms, that is where they are causing health hazards, they are causing toxicity. So, that is where the problem comes. So, the process by which an organism absorbs and accumulates these chemicals directly from the abiotic sources such as soil, air or water, and then the dietary sources. So, when an organism absorbs these chemicals from these various sources, this process is known as bioaccumulation. So, when anything accumulates, when will it happen? It will happen when the intake of a chemical is more than its excretion. So, naturally it will start accumulating in our body. Now, this is a natural process and in fact, it is a very essential process for growth of any organisms. Even we humans bioaccumulate large amount of vital nutrients such as vitamins we eat, trace minerals we eat, then essential fats, amino acids. So, these are all bioaccumulated in our body. So, what are the different modes? How we these chemicals enter into the body? So, there can be different routes. We may take them by breathing, such as lungs and then gills in aquatic animals. Then we may take it through water drinking or through eating, which will be our gastrointestinal tract. Then another route of entry is skin and related structures such as furs, then we have feathers, scales. So, generally these organs act as a protective barriers against any environmental stresses, but there are many chemicals such as PCBs, they are taken up by dermal route also. So, all these routes of entry actually need the chemical has to enter through a lipid layer, right. You know that all the cells are covered by a membrane which is actually a lipid layer, lipoprotein. So, basically they will be able to enter only if they are lipophilic. So, bioaccumulation is directly proportional to lipophilicity of any chemical. Now, once they are absorbed, if the organism is unable to process them for excretion, because of slow degradation, they will tend to accumulate in certain parts of the body, and if we still keep taking them, then their concentration will become high and high, and this will lead to toxicity in the animals. So, this way we have been exposed to various toxic chemicals such as lead, mercury, DDT, PCBs. So, this figure is actually picture is showing you how the organism takes harmful chemicals from nature and then starts accumulating it over the time period. So, DDT is sprayed on plants, caterpillar comes, nibbles on these leaves which have been sprayed with DDT. So, it is accumulating DDT. Now, this caterpillar is being eaten by various birds. So, as a result, birds will start accumulating DDT. Now, there are certain factors, it is important that we should know why these chemicals are being bioaccumulated. So, there can be number of factors. So, first is environmental persistence. Now, if their concentration in which they are present in the environment is very important, and if they are biodegraded and removed from the nature, then it is okay, and if they are eliminated fast. But if they are not biodegraded, if there are no microbes which can degrade them, eliminate them from the body, then definitely they are going to persist in the environment. Lipophilic nature, as I already said that the bioaccumulation is directly proportional to lipophilic nature, because all these chemicals have to go through the lipid membranes of the cells. So, that is why if you we talk about the fish from oligotrophic lakes, they have low suspended levels. Now, what has this suspension to do? Now, what happens is that if they are lipophilic and there are lot of suspended particles in the environment, so they get entrapped into those suspended particles and they are removed. So, they still exist, but they are not able to enter into the body of the organism. So, that is the reason fish from oligotrophic lakes which have low suspended levels, they absorb more of a DDT as compared to eutrophic lakes which have more suspended particles. Then duration of exposure is also important. So, more is the time of duration, more are the chances will intake these chemicals. Metabolic rate. So, faster metabolic rate results into the elimination and excretion from the body. So, the large fat organisms which have a low metabolic and excretion rate, they will bioaccumulate more of a chemical as compared to small short lived organisms which have a faster metabolic rate. So, that is why you will see that an old lake trout will be bioaccumulating more as compared to a young bluegill in the same lake. Then ability to transformation. Now, all living organisms, they once any xenobiotic enter into our body, we process them by number of metabolic reactions which are known as biotransformations. And the purpose of these biotransformations is to convert these chemicals into more hydrophilic form. so that they can be readily excreted out of our body and not bioaccumulated. So, if we are able to biotransform them, we are able into hydrophilic form, we will be able to excrete them. Then species. Now, how the biochemical, these chemicals accumulate in different organisms, it also depends upon the species. So, some are bioaccumulated more in the aquatic animals than in the terrestrial animal or vice versa. Then there is another phenomenon which is known as bioconcentration. So, this phenomenon is specifically used for aquatic organisms, and it is the process where a chemical concentration in an aquatic organism exceeds its concentration in the surrounding water body. So, means there is less amount of that chemical in the water body, but then it accumulates in the body of the living organisms to a very high amount, and generally this uptake is by the respiratory surfaces, skins or gills. Now, if you there is an example, for example oysters, they can concentrate as much as 700 ppm of DDT. ppm is parts per million of DDT in their body from as low concentration of 0.001 ppm in sea water. You can basically understand how bioconcentration can be toxic. So, there is a difference between bioconcentration and bioaccumulation. We are using two different terms. Now, in bioaccumulation, the mode of entry is, it can be anything, it can be respiratory, it can be dermal, it can be food, but bioconcentration is only through the skin or gills from water. Now, this figure is showing you the biomagnification. Biomagnification is when the concentration of a compound increases up a food chain. Now, if you look at figure A, there you will see that with increasing time period of exposure to a chemical, there is increased amount of bioaccumulation with time. But if you look at figure B, this is showing you the biomagnification. So, there it is the same animal, the substance is getting accumulate over the time period. But in biomagnification, what is happening? You have zooplanktons which are being eaten by fish, fish is eaten by seal, and then seal is eaten by bear. So, now as the trophic level is increasing, you will see that the chemical is getting, the amount of chemical which is getting accumulated is increasing. So, this is known as biomagnification, when there is increased concentration of a substance up the trophic levels in the food chain. Now, this figure is again it is also showing you the biomagnification, and it also shows you the extent of biomagnification which is occurring across the trophic levels. Now, here you are looking at an example of DDT. So, DDT, you know, it is a very commonly used insecticides. It used to be very commonly used in United States before 1972. To help to control the mosquitoes and other insects, because basically it is an insecticide. Now, what happened and then because it was being sprayed, so it started leaking into the creeks, and then it went into the soil and then into the water. So, water may, if you look at this figure, DDT concentrations is 3 into 10 to the power minus 6 ppm. And then when the zooplanktons which were there in water, they started taking it, the concentration increased to, they were bioaccumulated 0.04 ppm. So, that is the bioconcentration. Then fish, they were feeding on zooplanktons, their concentration was 0.5 ppm. Larger fish, it became 0.5 ppm, and if you look at the pelican birds which are eating on these fish, this went up to 25 ppm. So, as a result, what happens, because of the high level of DDT, their eggshells, they became very weak. So, even before the egg could hatch, it broke. So, as a result, it prematurely killed the baby birds. So, there was a time when there was a drastic decrease in the population of these birds. So, after 72 United States stopped using DDT. So, after that there has been now increase in population of these predatory birds. So, looking at the gravity of this problem, it is very important that we should be able to assess whether a chemical has the tendency to bioaccumulate or biomagnify. So, different parameters are used which give an idea whether it can be whether it can accumulate in the environment, and it is then confirmed at various levels before it can be said that okay, this has a tendency to bioaccumulate. One is octanol water partition coefficient. So, basically it is representing the ratio of a chemical concentration of a chemical in octanol, that is CO, and concentration in water, that is CW, in an immiscible mixture of water and octanol at equilibrium. So, this parameter is an indication of affinity of a chemical for fat, which is basically octanol. Then recently another parameter is also used which is known as octanol air partition coefficient. So, that is used for the organisms which are living in air or land, because they will be taking it through air also. Bioconcentration factor is the ratio of the concentration of a chemical in the organisms to the concentration in water once the steady state has been reached. So, this type of bioconcentration, because we are using it for aquatic animals, and this will be under laboratory controlled conditions, and there the chemical will be present in water, not in other sources. Then another factor is bioaccumulation. So, bioaccumulation considers all the compartments of the environment. Then we have biomagnification, which is the ratio of the concentration of the substance in predator compared to prey on a lipid weight basis. Again, this is done in a laboratory conditions, and laboratory values reflect exposure of organism only via the diet, but not water or air. So, this is a compiled picture. So, first octanol water or octanol air partition is determined. If that becomes higher or equal to 4 or value of 5, then bioconcentration is determined, and then after that bioaccumulation is determined. If that also comes positive, then you go for biomagnifications. So, finally trophic magnification factor is determined, which shows the increasing concentration of the substance through food web. So, once all these factors are determined and it is confirmed, then we can safely say that that particular chemical has a tendency to be bioaccumulated and biomagnified. So, let us summarize what we have learnt so far. Now, we have talked about various chemicals which are released into the environment, and these could be either man-made or due to these could be natural also. There are recalcitrant compounds or chemicals. Their indiscriminate use of these organic and inorganic compound results in their accumulation in the abiotic component of the ecosystem, such as soil, water, air, or eventually bioaccumulation in the living organisms. And since all these organisms of the ecosystem are linked together by food chain, bioaccumulation does not stop at one trophic level. In fact, concentration of the bioaccumulate chemical increases as we go up the food chain, which is known as biomagnification. So, I hope this cleared some of your concepts regarding ecotoxicity and how these chemicals accumulated and cause toxicity. Thank you very much.